Hi everybody, welcome to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. It's 3 o'clock on a rather murky Tuesday here in downtown Providence. I'm your GoLocal Live host, Rachel Nunes. We're here with our first guest, Lee Raposa. She's here from the Rhode Island Student Assistance Services. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us back.
So, last week we did a pre-back-to-school talk with talking about teen dating violence. Now, again, we don't really want it to be back to school, but it's coming up fast. So ahead of back to school, we want to talk a little bit about what are some of the services that are available to students. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Rhode Island Student Assistance Services, so this is a timely topic. I'm hoping that there are some parents that are listening and working towards supporting their child or children as they re-enter school, or even possibly are starting school or going to a new environment, a different school. So there are a number of resources that are in schools for student social support, student supports. Some of those are our student assistance program. So Rhode Island Student Assistance Service has been around for about a little over 30 years. And we are a group of master's level clinicians or master's level social workers, and sometimes other fields, mental health professionals. And we're in schools to offer support to students. It's a confidential support. Maybe a student is coming from a using or abusing family. Maybe they themselves have started using or abusing drugs or alcohol. Sometimes there's actually support groups for kids who might have a number of different things in common that they're experiencing during adolescence. So we're in the middle schools and the high schools. So we're called the Student Assistance Counselors. If you actually want to look up within your school system who those folks are, maybe their schedules, how you can contact them. But I would definitely make sure that students are aware that that's a resource. And then there's a number of other resources that I think we'll probably talk about as we have this conversation that parents should be familiar with, as well as your students.
And so are you in all public schools, in all schools in this state? How can
That's a
students
great
find
question.
you?
So we're actually not in every school district. We always hope that we'll be expanding at some point statewide, but right now we are in a number of different school districts. If you wanted to, actually, I could name them all, but it'll probably take a couple minutes. So we are, and we cover different parts of the state for sure, but we might not necessarily be in your school, but we might be in your school, a neighboring school district. So you could actually just go to your school's website and look to see what the student support services are. Typically the social worker, guidance counselors, school psychologists, and then from there you can actually see if you have a student assistance counselor. Or you can actually just always email me or go to our website, www.risas.org, or you can email me at lreposa@risas.org, and I can actually let you know if you have a student assistance counselor available.
And so why are student assistant counselors so important? Why is it important to have this resource available to young people?
Yeah, I think more often than not, there are students who might be coming from a family system or have had experience with their friends or peers, or maybe even a sibling who has started to use drugs and alcohol, and it's really hard to kind of navigate that obviously on your own, and maybe they are actually not having an experience where they're getting support in their community or maybe even at home. So this is a confidential resource that students can go to for support. And a lot of times this is what we really do best, is information. So there might be information that students think is true, but then we can go back and actually let them know that vaping is actually worse than the historical nicotine delivery system of cigarettes, when there might be a perception out there that it's actually safer. So a lot of times students might think that they know all the facts, but this is a safe way for them to actually get the information that they need to make responsible, healthy decisions.
And so you said you're located in middle schools and high schools across the state. I know when it comes to self-care and mental health, a big issue that comes up is college. Whether you're starting college or you're changing colleges or you're going back, college can be a very, very stressful time. Do you have any resources available to these older students?
Great question. So our program, the Student Assistance Program, which is all around the United States and is evidence-based, it's actually targeted specifically for something called early intervention and prevention. So that starts in elementary, middle school, and high school. So we ourselves do not have resources in higher education. However, I would always encourage parents and students to make sure that they are connected with their school counseling center. you know, even before going into school. If you're already getting support, like through a treatment program or medication and or therapy or other kinds of interventions like that, those are great to keep intact and to transition into your college environment and still have resources like that. So to make sure you know where your wellness center is, where the counseling center is, where your academic supports are, and that way it can be hit the ground running with your social emotional supports, especially in a new environment like going off to college.
And so talking a little bit for parents, maybe of younger children, but besides those who maybe have come from a home where there was abuse or alcohol or drug abuse, how can parents know, I think my child might be a good candidate to speak with this counselor?
Honestly, I think any student, and so one of the things that we do just so you know, is at the beginning of the school year, our student assistance counselors actually go into classrooms, introduce themselves, let students know sort of what they're there for, how they can be an additional resource or support for them, what that can entail, where their office is located, which is huge because a lot of times, you know, students don't know, or maybe that room has changed over the last couple of years. So as far as being a candidate, I think any student would really benefit if they have a friend or someone in their lives who is starting, you know, a peer group even that's starting to use drugs and alcohol, or if they just have questions, you know, they might just have questions. They might have seen something on TV or, you know, on the internet, and they just want to know more information. And sometimes students actually will work with our student assistance counselors. So I actually am a mentor for some students all around the state who do their senior project on things like substance abuse prevention, suicide prevention, emotional, you know, and social emotional supports for students. So there's a lot of different. You don't need to be a student who's necessarily experimenting or in the throes of addiction in order to get the benefit of the support of the student assistance counselor. And then the last piece that we didn't actually mention, it's not just always one-on-one with students, is that our student assistance counselors go into classrooms and actually teach a specific evidence-based curriculum called the Prevention Education Series. So that's a number of different modules, and so then students actually get to learn information and then apply it in a fun, interactive way.
That's great, and it's definitely good to start young and get that education out there. So there is education, and kids know, like you mentioned about vaping. A lot of kids do say, oh, well, you know, juuling is fine. It's not as bad. I know when I was in high school, I knew a lot of people who used e-cigarettes, and they all said, well, you know, it's fine. It's just water vapor. And I at the time I believed it as well. I never used it, but I believed that as well. Oh well, it's just harmless. It's just fun. So it's good to get that education out young.
It is, definitely. One of the other things that I think for parents, if you're thinking of supporting your child or have just questions on how can I really re-enter the school year with my child as, you know, as a team, I would say really try to not overschedule, allow time for fun. You know better than anybody that leads to stress, and so if you're stressed and you're, you know, running here and there, your child's feeling that stress as well, and then if they get into the habit of overscheduling, then that becomes, you know, a lifestyle, and that's when students will come to us and say, I'm at the stress level of a 10, but maybe we haven't been kind of working with them on some coping skills, you know, at the 1, 2, 3 level, and now they're at 10 and they're, you know, experiencing academic challenges. And the other thing is try to encourage your child to get involved with at least one activity that's school sponsored. It doesn't need to be, you know, something super, you know, time consuming like I just was talking about, but just something, because you never know, there might be a connection that's made with that activity. And what we do know, the research shows us, is that connectedness is a protective factor for our students. So they might not be connected with a teacher or a certain subject, but they might be connected, you know, in their extracurricular world with maybe another mentor or another student. So just allowing them to have that opportunity of outside the academic world of having some sort of connection is really powerful. There's a number of different things that parents can consider as they're going into the school year, but really just kind of being a partner and being a team in that school experience, and asking your child, you know, what is something you're really excited about this year? And it's okay if they say that there's going to be a new lunch menu, or there's going to be, like, you know, a different technical kind of tool in the library, like, you know, whatever they say. If they're excited about something, then go with that. It doesn't necessarily need to be purely academics. So there's, you know, just have an open dialogue with your student. And if they come home from school, the number one thing they always say is, try not to say, how was your day at school? because that's such a broad, open-ended question. A lot of times kids just want to say, between 1 and 10, what was your school day like? Well, it was a 4. Then you can just kind of say, well, why was it a 4? What would have made it an 8? And then you can kind of go from there. But it's so overwhelming for somebody to say, what was your day like between 7 in the morning when you got on the bus and now it's 4:30 in the afternoon? So make it easy for them to answer that question.
That's really great. I know the classic, like, oh, it was good, and then that's the end of it, because there is just so much to put in. And going back a little bit to what you were saying about overscheduling, I know especially for high schoolers, that's a huge thing. Again, when I was in high school, there was the constant focus of, well, you need to have lots of stuff on your resume or you'll never get accepted to college, and you have to have 5 extracurriculars and all the great grades. Yeah. What would you say, not so much to a parent, but to a high schooler on finding that balance? Because of course you do want to take advantage of what's there, and you do want to expand yourself and get leadership opportunities, but how do you find that balance where you can also focus on you a little bit, focus on your mental health?
Yeah, and I would say that for parents, you know your child best, right? And then if there are certain academic expectations for the school year, maybe starting with those and then looking at, okay, how much time do we have during the day other than those academic sort of obligations for fun? So if your student, maybe they don't play on the soccer team at school, but they can be in a league outside of school, just something where they have an outlet that reduces stress, that they have fun, peer, just kind of like downtime. And that downtime can be reading a book, it could be being on the internet. I know a lot of times parents say they want to reduce screen time, which we should be reducing screen time. But if that's like a coping skill for a student to kind of be able to just sit, then that's okay. We want to encourage that. But as far as what you're asking, your child, and do check-ins. Like, hey, it's the first 3 weeks of school. How do you think it's going? Do you feel like you're doing too much? You have too much downtime? And then just kind of monitor that. And if you see that they start to take on too much, really just make sure they're able to manage that. And if not, what supports either in the school or you as parents can help them manage and maybe start to peel away some things that really aren't necessary.
That's great advice. And as we approach the school year, maybe for people starting, some kids who might be starting high school or going into middle school, or younger kids just get a little nervous about going back to school. How can we help our kids get past that? Ooh, end of summer, I'm a little nervous about going back to school feeling.
Yeah, I would say definitely leveraging things like if there's an open house, doing things with your student. Like there are students, and I just remember my own experience. I had a lot of trouble. I went to a school in Massachusetts, and we had lockers, and I had never had a locker before because the elementary school I went to didn't. So I couldn't remember my locker number, and I didn't really know how to use the locker. So maybe if taking advantage of things where they're doing those introductions into the school formally and making sure that your child is engaging in that. And if you already know that they've had some challenges, socially or just with nerves before, kind of right out of the gate, making sure that they're exposed to things and the people that can help them. So maybe they do forget their locker number. I don't even know if they have numbers anymore. I think they do. And then just making sure that they know who they can go to if they're, or having like a buddy, somebody else that can help them navigate that. So, but the other thing is that it's really normal. I would be surprised if kids weren't in some way nervous or a little bit of anxiety. Doesn't mean that they have an anxiety disorder, but they can be anxious without being in full-blown anxiety. And that's normal, right? That's kind of how our bodies prepare ourselves for different environments. So that's okay. But if you see that it's going on more than a couple weeks, that they're still not kind of settling in, and they're still, maybe they have tummy aches, or maybe they don't want to, fear of getting on the bus or different things, then that's an opportunity to maybe reach out to the school support team or to the classroom teacher and say, hey, I might need some help kind of transitioning my son or daughter to school this year. They're struggling. It's okay to ask for help.
Great, and I think that's the underlying theme of just it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to find someone to help. Well, thank you so much for coming in. We really do appreciate it. As we approach back to school time, it's great for parents and for students to know that these resources are available in Rhode Island schools, or you can reach out directly. So thanks so much, Lee Raposa. She's here with Rhode Island Student Assistance Services. Yes. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
And a happy back to school, everyone. And we'll be back in just a minute with our next guest here on GoLocal Live. Welcome back to Go Local Live here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm here now with Loren Spear. She's the director of the Tamaqua Museum down in Exeter. Thanks so much for joining us. There's lots of exciting things happening at the museum.
That there is. We have so many exciting partnerships and events coming up. Our first one is with the Rhythm and Roots Festival down in Charlestown, Rhode Island. We're partnering with them this Labor Day weekend.
Coming up in just about a week?
Yes, just a little over a week, and we have a Native Elder doing the opening blessing. We have Native storytellers. We have a cooperative Native arts vendor booth, so stop by and come see us. And then each day we'll be doing workshops, doing dream catchers, cornhusk dolls, and double strand necklaces for the public for free at the festival for about an hour or so. And then we also have storyteller Thon Harris in the family tent each day of the festival. And so
sounds like a lot of fun and a great way to interact with the community.
Definitely. And we also have another partnership with Trinity Rep Theater. We're hosting our 60th anniversary cultural celebration at Trinity Rep on Thursday, September 6th. You can get information about it on our website at tamaquagmuseum.org. And our 60th anniversary, we're doing something unique and different. One, because it's our 60th anniversary, and two, because we really want to promote cultural tourism in Rhode Island, and specifically Indigenous cultural tourism. So we're bringing in some great performers. We have Guy Emoto, who's a Hawaiian ukulele player and singer who sings all different genres of music, both traditional Hawaiian to reggae to blues and R&B and classic rock. And then we have an intertribal dance troupe with dancers, drummers from all over the Northeast corridor, sharing traditional dances and songs and with some explanation about what they are. And our finale performer are the Groovalados, which are a Grammy-nominated group that sing funk R&B type music, but they're out of the Mashpee Wampanoag community and the Mississippi Band Choctaw and Cherokee community, so it's very exciting. And we also have 3 honorees, Eleanor Dove, who just was on the front page of the Providence Journal Sunday, who is...
And we also did a profile on
Yes.
her a little while back. I had the wonderful honor of meeting her.
Yes, because she turned 100 and has done so many things. So she's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and Senator Lou DePalma is getting the Ellison Tarzan Brown Champion Award for all his hard work championing Tamaqua Museum. He's done so many wonderful things to help us along the way. And then Kenny Merrick Jr., who's a Native person who is just done phenomenal things in his lifetime, and that's actually a posthumous award. So we're very excited about our 60th anniversary event, and we hope everyone will join us. And you can go to our website, tamaquagmuseum.org/60th, and get all the information about all the honorees and about all the performers and what the event will entail.
It does. It sounds like a lot of fun. So it is open to the public. Anyone?
It is
anyone
open to the public. It's $35 for the ticket. You get to go to Trinity Rep and get all those performances. If you want to be fancy, we do have VIP tickets, and you can go to a VIP reception for $150 per ticket. But the regular tickets are $35, and you can enjoy pretty much everything that's going on. Everything I just said is all included in that.
Sounds like it's going to be a great celebration of both Tamaqua and local culture around the area as well.
And that kind of leads into a special thing we're doing on October 2nd. We're actually partnering with PBS. They're doing a Native America series, and they're doing vignettes, I'll call them, little short films about the local Native community, including Tamaqua Museum and local Native artists. And the kickoff is going to be at the University of Rhode Island on October 2nd. And they're going to show one of the 4 from the series, plus have a roundtable discussion and have the producer Gary Glassman there. So it'll be really wonderful for people to get a little spotlight on Rhode Island's Indigenous community in partnership with PBS.
That's great. And so is it filming in October, or will it be airing on PBS in October?
The kickoff event is in October, and it'll be airing on PBS in November.
All right. Well, we'll have to all set our DVRs for that and check it out. So, tell us a little bit about Tamaqua and the history. Like, congratulations, of course, on your 60th anniversary. I know it's kind of hidden down in Exeter. You have to go looking for it out by the Arcadia Wildlife Area.
It's a beautiful drive.
It is. It's a lovely area. So tell us a little bit about Tamaqua.
So Tamaqua Museum is a Native nonprofit museum. It's 60 years old. It was founded by Eva Butler, who was an anthropologist, and Princess Redwing, who was a Narragansett educator, artist, oral historian. And It's a museum that tells the first person story of indigenous peoples of Rhode Island and of southern New England. We highlight the Narragansett tribe, but we also highlight other local tribes because we intersect with each other in many different ways, as well as talk about global indigenous issues that happen across the nation and sometimes across the world. So especially when we talk about colonization and the loss of language and culture and tradition, that sometimes can get very global with indigenous populations. So our museum has an amazing collection. We have lots of researchers and artists that use our collection to inspire their work and their research. We are a small facility, but it's chock-a-block full of all kinds of wonderful things. Exhibits about Ellison Tarzan Brown, a famous Narragansett athlete that was an Olympian and won the Boston Marathon, not once, but twice, plus many other marathons. And we tell the history about his life and tell things that are not in the books about him as a runner. We also have exhibits about the Narragansett Indian Church and the history of the church and all the different pastors that have been serving in the church, as well as the Narragansett August Meeting Powwow that just went by, and we were just there having a vendor booth. Telling the history of powwow, telling a history of our community, telling the history of famous people like Princess Red Wing, who co-founded the museum, and her impact on not just the Native community, but the community at large. And so we have just a myriad of exhibits. Probably one of my favorites is The Pursuit of Happiness, because that exhibit speaks to the Declaration of Independence and the formation of this country. And so if you want to learn more about that from an indigenous perspective, come visit us.
That's a great point you raised. It's good to think about historical events and things like that through different perspectives we maybe wouldn't have thought of before. Generally, when you talk about the Declaration of Independence, you think Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and all the people you've learned about for all these years. So it's important to get that different perspective, and that's what you're offering at Tamaqua.
And also to see what's actually written right there that most people just don't know, remember. When we're all in school, we read it, give it back to the teacher, and we forget about it, and we don't really remember all the details in there. Indigenous people are spotlighted in the Declaration, unfortunately not in the best possible light. So it's something to talk about, and talk about that time period and how people viewed Indigenous people and how maybe our happiness was denied us through the historical trauma and the history of genocide, enslavement, and things like that, but then how do we pursue it today as Indigenous people living in the 21st century? And so our museum is very much about talking and learning about our history, but also informing people of what people are doing today in the Indigenous community here, which sometimes is invisible when you're standing here in downtown Providence and there's all these buildings and people. You sometimes can forget about the Indigenous people, that this is their original homeland. And I think there's something like 1.5 million people that live in Rhode Island, and there's only 3,000 on our federally recognized tribal rolls, and maybe 8,000 Indigenous people that live in Rhode Island today. So that makes us invisible in our own homeland sometimes. So we like to bring to light through the arts and the work that we do at the museum and our partnerships and our programs, the visibility of Indigenous people and the vibrancy of the community and the impact that we've had on the creation of this state and of this nation. So it's really important.
Absolutely. And speaking a little bit about the art you mentioned, you feature local artists in your gift shop at the museum, and you get people from all over.
We do. We've actually started a program called the Indigenous Empowerment Network, and the idea around that is to empower the Indigenous community through a variety of means. And one of them is through our gift shop by having a collaboration where we work with local Native artists, and we have over 30 Native artists represented in our small gift shop. But we also do programming for the Native community, helping them build their arts businesses. This year was a lot of funding from the USDA Rural Business Development, helping us build our gift shop and also helping us build small local businesses. And we also feature an Artist of the Month, and they're promoted through all our promotional means, social media, website, and so forth. But also they are in our new contemporary exhibit, and each month to 2 months it changes and a new artist is spotlighted for that time period, and we'll have a little event where they might do demonstrations of their artwork, or they might do an artist talk, or they may do a workshop. So some of them were doing beadwork, and so they did a beading workshop, for example, where people could take a class and learn how to make beautiful beaded earrings. And another taught people how to make her special frames that she does. And so that was really exciting. And others have demonstrated their work. We've got a workshop coming up where they're going to be doing bark work. So that'll be really cool.
What a great way to both bring together the community and showcase local artists, but also help to show these traditional crafts that maybe aren't as widely done anymore, and help get the word out and show more people how to do that.
Yes, and through the gift shop, it also gives the visitor to our museum an authentic experience to be able to take something home that's from the Native community right here. And so people really enjoy that. We had one visitor that came up from like Georgia, and she said she goes to nothing but all little museums, and she said even though our gift shop was little, it was the most authentic. And I loved that, because that's what we were trying to be, trying to, you know, bring to light the indigenous artists of this area and highlight them.
Great. Well, if we want to come check out the museum, when can we do that?
So our drop-by visitor days are Wednesdays from 10 to 5, Saturdays from 10 to 2, or by appointment for groups, private tours, and the like. We do all kinds of groups and tours on all the other days. Sometimes our drop-by days confuse people, so you can book tours on the other 6 days. And we also have upcoming events on September 22nd. They can come to the museum for free because we have the Smithsonian Day Live partnership, and they can go on their website, get free passes to come to our museum. And we're having that in partnership with our event called Cranberry Thanksgiving, which has storytelling and dance and games and tours and scavenger hunts and all kinds of activities for kids and families.
Sounds like a great time to come check out Tamaqua if we haven't been down just yet.
Yes, we would love to have you and you can check out our website at tamaquagmuseum.org. And on our website, we also have a podcast and a blog and all kinds of educator resources and a myriad of things to help your students learn more about Native culture, or to help you learn more about Native culture.
Sounds great. Well, if you haven't been down to South County in a while looking for something to do, go check out the Tamaqua Museum. Big congratulations on your 60th anniversary. And if you want to check out their big 60th anniversary bash, you can get more information on their website for that as well. So, Loren Spears, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we'll be right back with our next guest here on GoLocal Live. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. We have our last guest of the hour. We're here for some laughs. Tad Flynn is here. He is an organizer and a performer at this year's Comedian in Exile, coming to the Knickerbocker Cafe in Westerly. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
Thanks so much for making the trek all the way up from Westerly. It's a bit of a haul.
The GPS has a little bit of issues with your construction.
Always plenty of that here in Rhode Island. So tell us a little bit about Comedians in Exile.
Comedians in Exile is really a group of performers from New York. We've all performed together easily 30 to 40 times as a group, together with a lot of other comedians. And having a house down in Westerly, it occurred to me, I've got to get these guys up here. Westerly needs to laugh. We need to have some fun up here. And if you live in Westerly, you got to go 30 miles to get a live laugh. So bringing up a group of friends and just putting on a party at the Knickerbocker.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And so tell us a little bit about some of the other performers that are going to be there.
Okay, so hosting the evening will be Ron Nobles. And how to describe Ron? Ron is probably the whitest person I know. We kind of call him Wonder Bread behind his back. And you know, I realize I'm white, but at least I'm tan. I'm making an effort. Then we have Eric Newman, and Eric's album Nervous Lover came out in the spring and debuted at #1 on iTunes. Eric he would fit the persona of the neurotic Jew. And so in New York, it's a very well-defined category. And Westerly, I think that's going to qualify as diversity. Also joining is Mark Gerber, and Mark's a very, very funny guy. And even though we've performed with Mark for 40 plus times, none of us know his sexuality. We're not clear whether he's gay or whether he's straight. And when I asked him about his logistics for the weekend and you know who was coming with him, all he would say is my significant other. That wasn't really very helpful. So I'm inclined to think that Mark is gay because straight guys don't usually say significant other, but that could also be Mark just fucking with us. So I don't know. And then we have Kendra Cunningham, and I don't even want to say anything controversial about Kendra because she's just totally badass. I know if I say anything at all controversial, she's just going to grab my nuts in a vice and twist them. So yeah, that's the lineup that we have coming into the Knickerbocker.
Sounds like it's going to be a crazy evening, and that's coming up this Saturday.
This Saturday, 8 o'clock. Pre-sales have been extraordinarily strong, so it's pretty much assured to be a sellout evening.
Wow! And if we do want to pre-order tickets, where can we do that?
You go to the Knickerbocker Cafe's website, or you can go to the website for the United Theater. This is a benefit performance to benefit the United Theater. The United Theater is going through a major renovation, and the Knickerbocker and the United are planning on coming together to create more of a regional performing arts center. And so this evening is also an experiment to see, hey, for 2019, can we put on a series of stand-up shows?
Fantastic. And you'll also be performing that evening?
I will be performing. The others are all professionals and very much on the circuit. I'm the seasoned amateur who actually has a day job.
And so tell us a little bit about your style of comedy.
Well, when you're breaking in and you're trying to figure out where's your slot, the one thing I realized is nobody's done the repressed wasp. So that was a pretty natural place for me to be able to fit in. You know, we've got the angry person of color, we have the angry person of questionable sexuality, we have the neurotic Jew, we have the class clown. Nobody ever did the repressed wasp, so that's my slot.
Great, and how long have you been doing stand-up?
I've been doing stand-up for about 1.5 years now.
And what made you want to get into stand-up? What pushed you in that direction?
Midlife crisis. It's a lot cheaper than buying a Porsche 911. They also give you half-price drinks, and I couldn't think of any other vocation that actually subsidized drinking. So that seemed pretty compelling.
And so you said you're a New York-based troupe, and where else do you travel, and do you generally stay in the area? Did you just come up here because you said you have the connection to Westerly, or do you go all around the region?
Well, as a group for comedians a little bit like, I know it's a strange analogy, playing golf. Everybody has their home club. So all of us have the Comic Strip Live, which is the oldest club in New York, as our home club. All of us are born and bred New Yorkers. Well, Kendra's actually from Boston, but she wised up, moved to New York, lives in Brooklyn. And so we mostly perform around New York. And then from time to time, we go out to other cities wherever we can help organize shows and just make it economical. And I forgot to mention, Kendra also had an album that came out in 2016.
Fantastic. So it really sounds like a wide range of comedy that you'll be putting on Saturday. You can go kind of have a little something for everybody.
It's mostly PG-13. It does get into R, so even though it's all ages, just there is some R-rated material.
And you said you have your different shows that you go around to, and it's mostly PG. So would you say it's more of a date night for just mom and dad, or bring the family?
I think anybody over 18 will not be shocked by anything that they hear. I would not recommend 12-year-olds coming.
And so what's your favorite part of doing stand-up comedy?
There is no greater high than when you hear people laugh. The endorphins kick off, everybody feels good. And so think about laughter. It's the one thing that makes people feel really, really good. It's not caloric, it's not habit forming, nobody has to go into rehab for it. Who ends up worse off from laughing?
That's a great way of looking at it. The world could always use a couple more laughs. And well, thanks so much for coming in. Is there anything else you want to add about the show? What's your pitch of why should we all go see the show on Saturday?
Because you're going to laugh and you are going to hear truly professional comedians from New York who are at the top of their game, performing at all the leading clubs. And they're coming to Rhode Island because they need a weekend break. So they're all looking forward to taking advantage of your great beaches. You guys should be looking forward to taking advantage of their great humor.
Sounds like a win-win situation.
Should be.
And so you said anyone can buy tickets online in advance. How much are tickets?
Tickets are $15. And the Knickerbockers, very affordable drinks too. So it's not New York pricing, it's Rhode Island pricing.
Great. Well, it sounds like a good night. You got a cheap ticket, lots of laughs. What better way to spend a Saturday night? Well, thanks so much for coming in, Tad Flynn. He's an organizer and a performer, the Comedians in Exile. It's the Life's a Beach tour. Is that correct?
Life is a Beach tour.
Great. Well, be sure to check them out. They're coming to the Knickerbocker in Westerly on Saturday night, 8 o'clock, $15. You don't want to miss it. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Be well.
And we'll be back up at 4. Kate's got her show. She's got a full hour, so you don't want to miss that. And it'll be right here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm your GoLocal Live host, Rachel Nunes.
Peace out.